It's a great clap. That was a
solid. That was really good. That echoed. My neighbors probably heard that clap.
All right, whenever you guys are ready.
All right, Behind the Blog is back once again on location this time in the Octagon, in Octobob's home pad.
Welcome to the Fox Cave.
The Fox Cave and the Fox Couch.
An elite couch.
This is the couch for the couch crew, which is Bob, Trent, and then the honorable member Jared.
Yep, the Rocket.
The Rocket. I mean, it is a great couch, folks. It lives up to the hype totally and completely. The pillows are like down pillows, kind of, which is, usually cushions kind of suck. They're just kind of
cushions are horrible. Yeah.
This is great.
This is a classic couch. Many people from Barstool have slept here, whether it be storms or they just needed a place to stay for the night. And it's always lived up to the hype for everyone.
Right. A lot of whole milk has been spilled on this couch here, huh?
Not a lot of spills. We try to keep the spills away from the couch because it is, so storied.
So elite, yeah. So Trent and Bob live here.
Yep.
It's decked out with, we got Oasis, we got Kurt Cobain, Muhammad Ali, Wheezy. Who's up there?
Led Zeppelin. That's taken at Teterboro Airport, right down the block from where I grew up.
In the back there, we got the Funko Pop, Star Wars, Marvel, the whole nine. I mean, this place is WrestleMania. This place is you.
Yeah.
You have made this your home. And I think that's why you have so much success and why you have finally gotten here, and we're going to chronicle how you got here, is because you have such a distinct personality. Like, if you were to ask, sum this person up, you can do it with you. Like, you have such a style about you. And I think that it's grown to be a popular one in recent years and one that people relate to. And I think you having so many things from music to pop culture to your tats to art to weed to everything, you have so much in your personality. It's jam-packed in there.
Yeah, I think I'm just a super passionate person.
Yeah.
I think I'm very passionate about everything that I love.
Yeah, you're kind of like the anti-me in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I would say yeah.
I'm passionate about what I'm passionate about.
Like a yin-yang.
I'm not passionate, but I don't really have as many things as you do, and I'm definitely not as positive. I mean, you're
Seems
very
like you
positive
love to hate at times, right?
Yeah, you love to love.
People in wrestling say,
you love to love.
Exactly. People say you love to hate the heel, you love to boo the heel.
Yeah.
You love to hate, I love to love.
Yeah.
I hate putting out negative tweets.
Right.
If I see a movie I don't like, I'm like, I don't want to tweet about that. I don't want to offend the director. What if he sees that by happenstance? So
right.
I love to love.
You love to love.
I got peace and love. That's one of my tattoos.
Right. And I feel like you're positive, and your first inclination is to like things.
Definitely.
You go in liking something, and it has to prove you wrong.
Yep.
And I go in with a really high bar to anything. Music, movies, TV, whatever, food, where I'm like, my first reaction is always to be like, fuck this, or fuck that guy.
Tell you what your first reaction really is, though, because it's all back to the tattoos. It's why. My first reaction is why not?
Why not? Right. I'm always why, you're a why not kind of guy. It is a yin to the yang. I do like that. And maybe that's why I like you so much, Bob. Maybe you represent all the things I want to be in life.
And I'm trying to pull you to my side. I'm like, it's like Luke and Darth Vader. I'm like, come on, there's still light in you. I know there is.
I got those the Anakin red eyes. I love you though, Bob. I mean, I'm watching you get to here has been so awesome. And I always say this primarily about you and Rhea. A lot of people, but you two specifically. When you guys are 30, let's call it 30, you will have full-blown 12 years and really more 15, 16 under your belt. And when you're my age, 36, you will have been doing this for half your life. You guys will be so fucking good at this because you'll be calm, comfortable, cool, collected. Even if you're nervous now, because I think that's also part of your personality. You're a little bit nervous about things, but when you just keep doing them.
I'm anxious to do this because I know it's a lot of people watch the Behind the Blog. I watched the Behind the Blog. So
now you're here though. Totally, now you're in front of it. But the more you do things, eventually, even if you're terrified of something, you just eventually get through it. So you have do you think about that? Do you think about how early you got in on things?
Yeah, but I wanted to get in on things even earlier.
You knew.
So it was
so it wasn't even that early for you.
It felt like it took so long for me, And like I know a lot of people say like, oh my God, like you just got like handed it right away.
Oh,
and it was like
no,
I was
no,
applying
no,
for
no.
so long.
Yeah, you're not gonna hand it right away.
Yeah.
You're ahead of the game, but so when most kids were like, I want to be a UFC fighter or I want to be a rock star, it seems like you were maybe more reasonable and you were kind of like, I want to be involved in that in like an ancillary way, not like I'm not good enough to be the star. Or did you have like dreams to be those things and then
So I sort of like growing up, I had like two real dreams. I either wanted to be a movie director or a movie writer, like make movies, because I would watch behind the scenes Star Wars documentaries, and that like those would fascinate me as much as the movies would, like how they made the movies and how they choreographed the lightsaber battles, and that I was like, that's the coolest stuff in the world. Or I wanted to be a pro wrestler.
Okay,
And
so you did want to be it.
totally,
Like
I wanted
most
to entertain
kids,
in some way, yeah.
Right.
And I went to pro wrestling school. Like in high school, I went and trained to be a pro wrestler for a summer, and I hated it.
Really?
Yeah.
That's kind of like, I did that with, I wanted to like cover sports. My ideal dream was to be a Sports Center anchor.
Okay.
When I was growing up, it was still like hot to be like Craig Kilborn, Keith Olbermann, Dan Patrick, and I wanted to be those guys. And then I did, then just in general, like sports media, and that was the time I covered the Mets for a spring training and ended up hating it. I was like, this is not for me. This is too buttoned up. This is too, like, not the fun side of things. So you go and you try to become a wrestler.
Yeah.
And,
So, like-
and what, you just got your ass kicked? You're like, this sucks? Or you didn't
So
like
Barstool
any of
even
it?
came in before I went and trained to be a wrestler. I discovered Barstool when I was 12 years old. I remember still like being in my Aunt Laura's backyard, my cousin Mark coming up to me, and I was always like a little mature for my age.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a minute.
And he was like, check this out, I think you would think it's funny. And what I
was it?
gravitated
Do you
towards
remember?
right away was like the bro show stuff.
Okay.
And he was showing me just for like the blogs and like, which back in the day I feel like the super blog was like the Instagram where people were reading it and like not even knowing like the intricacies of the site.
Yes.
That was just where they went for funny stories, which
Right.
it still may be for some people.
Right.
But I was like, you guys are being paid to be friends. That's what it looked like to me.
Yeah.
I was like, I want to do that. So that's when like I started applying there. But when I was a junior in high school, I was like, man, like this, I was getting so into wrestling, so into indie wrestling. I was starting to see like routes in. I was starting to design t-shirts for wrestlers. I was like, I think I'm serious about this. I think I want to be a wrestler. So I remember like telling my mom like almost emotionally like, I'm going to go after this.
Yeah,
Like I know
yeah.
I don't look like it, but I'm going to commit to this and I'm going to get a boat flex. I'm going to commit. And I started going
What
to the
did
gym.
Mama Fox say? Was she just
She
like,
was-
okay, honey?
She
Like,
was so trying to talk me out of it.
Yeah.
Her and my brother, who's a massive
Yeah.
wrestling fan, was like, do not do that.
Right.
I remember my brother telling me, like, bro, he's a drummer. So he's like, I get to go up and have like 2 hours of glory on stage every night, and it's amazing. He's like, everything after that kind of stinks. He's like, you know, you don't get any reward after that. He's
Right.
like, you would get 10 minutes of beating yourself up a night, and then everything after that stinks.
Right.
So they were trying to talk me out of it. I was like, just let me go to wrestling school. They were like, fuck it, we'll let you try. So that was the beginning of my junior year, and I started going to the gym every day with
so was
my
it,
now
you're like
brother-in-law.
16, 17?
Yeah. And that's when I started doing the GOMAD, the gallon of milk a day. And I went from
GOMAD!
I went from like
Gallon of milk a
126
day.
pounds to like almost 160. And the weight was
Holy
like
shit.
but I didn't look like ripped. Like
No.
I looked big enough where people in gym, I remember changing in gym and kids noticing, and I remember that made me feel so good. I was like, oh
were
shit.
you working out at the same
Every day,
time?
yeah,
so
like-
you were, it was muscle, it wasn't just like fat.
Totally, yeah. I was going to the gym
Okay.
every day. And then that summer, I went to wrestling school, and I started training, started taking bumps, started taking suplexes,
Really?
started learning arm drags, like running the ropes, getting bruised up.
Shit, I didn't know this.
Yeah, and
So you flying off the top ropes?
not really. Not
yeah.
didn't get that far.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just hated it. Every step of the way, I was like, everything I thought I would love about it, I didn't like. I didn't like learning new moves. I didn't like running the ropes. I didn't like getting blown up, which is like, they try to beat it out of you and see who really wants it.
Yeah.
I did not really want it.
Right. I mean, the process works then, right?
Totally.
They weeded you out. Yeah.
And my trainer was amazing. He's this guy, Pat Buck, who's now a producer in the WWE. He was the guy that eventually super kicked me at that wrestling
Yes,
show.
yes.
So we're still friends to this
You
day.
took a great
Awesome
bump that
dude.
night.
And it was just like a wild experience. And after I realized it wasn't for me, I was super depressed. Because I was like, what
This
the fuck
is
am I
it.
going to do?
Yeah.
I was applying for Barstool for so many years, and it felt like I wasn't getting through. I remember going to sleep some nights being like, I'm never going to get the fucking Barstool. It's so sad. And I started emailing Kevin Owens, who's in the WWE now, being like, dude, like what? I knew him from designing shirts. I was like, what do I do? Like, I really didn't like it. I'm so depressed. And he kind of led me into different directions. And he was like, there's different ways to get into the business. You could be a referee, you could design shirts, you could be a
Right.
producer, you could do this.
Right.
Don't be depressed over this shit, dude. You're good. So he helped me out a lot there, and from there I kept applying to Barstool.
And why did he take, like, why, out of everyone who's probably emailed him and tried to take an interest, was he not that big at that point? Was he, like, how did you jump out and actually get him to reply and take you seriously?
I think I was designing shirts for him at the time. He liked my designs, and he had 2 young kids.
And you just sent them, by the way.
Yeah, I would just
Like,
send
he
them.
didn't say you're commissioned for these. It was just like,
Totally.
here you go.
I was drawing them with my finger on my iPad, just trying to. My thing was like, I want to be friends with these guys.
Yeah.
That was like all I wanted to do. I didn't want
Right.
anything in return. It's like I want to be friends with these guys. I want to be in the mix. Like it
Yeah.
seems awesome.
You said you wanted to get into the shows, right?
Totally.
I'll
I
design you a
wanted to-
shirt, just give me a ticket to your show.
Get me a ticket to your show, and I will design you as many shirts as you'd like. And I designed him a few shirts, and I saw like his kids would be into like I think Monsters Inc. or something. So I drew a thing of him as like Sully and his kids as like Mike and
Right.
Boo. And immediately he was kind of like appreciative of that.
Right.
So we got emailing back and forth, and now like we text almost every day. I
Right.
feel like he was the last guy I went out with before the pandemic. We went to a Ranger game together, and then the pandemic hit like the next day. I remember saying to him like, "Yeah, they're saying WrestleMania might get canceled. Could you
Please
imagine
that.
Yeah.
So you were emailing Barstool. Now if I hear a 12-year-old that reads Barstool, it kind of is like normal. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, we're a media company at this point that we've been around long enough that fathers have had kids and kids have grown up, and it's like, yeah, from 12 to fucking
It's like,
55.
oh, you know the General. You're a Smitty fan. Yeah.
Yeah, Team Portnoy came along, the children. We have Smitty with his army of kids. But when you were doing it, I mean, what year was that?
When I was 12, I turned 12 in 2010.
So it's just
Or it was
Barstool,
probably,
New York.
It was probably, I started emailing when I was like 13, 14. So it was probably 2011, 2012.
So that's just Barstool, New York, and Barstool,
yeah,
Boston.
yeah.
I mean,
you
that's
were like my guy
OG.
because I was like New York because I was a New Jersey guy. But I was always like, I'm a fucking Yankee Ranger fan. So
Yeah, I know, that was tough.
Yeah.
There was some growing pains with that for sure.
Yeah.
But that is like early OG Barstool. For you to have like jumped on that is, you know,
My cousin
you're
went
ahead of your
to
time.
East Stroudsburg College, so he was.
He knew too. So I think, and that I think is kind of a big part of who you are, right? I feel like your brother,
Yep.
and it sounds like cousins.
My brother, my sister.
We're all older than you, and by a pretty significant margin.
Yeah,
right?
I've got a sister 9 years older than me and a brother 12 years older
right.
than me.
And so you've always been an old soul.
Way mature.
And
yeah.
they like, I mean, everybody wants to be like their brother or sister. I certainly did, but like, you know, I have a 4-year difference. Most people have a couple-year difference. It's not that big of a deal. For you, I mean, you're talking about branching like different generations almost.
Yep.
So you were never. Did you ever like fit in your own age crowd?
No.
Age group?
No.
Yeah, you were always. So you were
Like,
always
I
the kid
always
at school.
had
Like, I don't
friends.
listen to that. I'm listening to like
Always.
classic rock. Oh, I don't watch that movie.
Always.
I'm watching this some shit from the '70s. Like,
Always. And I remember it being so frustrating for me, like going to middle school and kids like making fun of me being like, Robbie listens to Screamo, he listens to Green Day. And me being like, Green Day's not even Screamo.
You're not even good at this.
Yeah, I was so frustrated, but yeah, never. Like, I always had friends in school, was always friendly with people, never was like the awkward kid who nobody talked to by any means, because I think I was funny. I was like, I would always use my humor to my advantage and make fun of myself. But yeah, I was always like kind of never fitting in with that age group. Always knowing like when I get out of high school, I'm going to find friends.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So but you were like at peace with that. You weren't like stressed
Yeah.
or
I
like
mean-
nervous or like, oh, I don't have friends. It was just like these guys are just not. They don't fit me right now. And when I get to a point in life where I can mesh with older age groups, I'll be good.
I would say I came to peace with it, but I definitely was like tough in the beginning, like
Yeah.
because like I just didn't fit in with friends. So I remember like saying to friends like, "Oh, we should go do this," and then they would go do it without me and do shit like that. So like that shit hurt. That was like, you know, I was always a super 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 anxious kid. Depression hit me super early, so like I dealt with that for a while. It wasn't like it was just dirt off my shoulder, but yeah.
But yeah, so like you're handling it, but it sounds like you at least had some perspective of like,
Yeah.
this is happening now, and it won't happen forever.
Yeah,
Like,
I would
get-
credit that to like my brother and my sister and me realizing like how close I was with them, still am with them, and how much we related. Like I'll be able to find people like them, even if they are older. And now all of my friends are my brother and my sister's age. It's people at Barstool.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've always been an old soul, and you probably will continue to be forever.
I don't think, other than like the people at Barstool that are my age, I don't think I have any friends my age, really.
Well, now you're at a place, it's weird, where Barstool kind of becomes your life in a sense.
Yeah,
like your
it's
social
hard to
life,
find your friends.
Yeah. And like, when you work at like a corporate job, it's like, all right, I have to like meet people at the bar, or I have to find a way. But when you can be social with people you work with, and you find a guy like Trent and the Rocket, you have a couch crew, it's like...
And now it's like the people I find as my friends are like UFC fighters that I interview. And it's like the coolest stuff in the world, you know what I mean? Like people that I looked up to that I now become friends with, which... Same thing with Barstool, really.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird to, like, you want to, like, kind of keep things separate, but at some point it just kind of all, like, blends together.
Yeah.
So your brother and your sister are kind of, like, showing you the ropes.
Always.
And they, thankfully for you, they seem very, like, cultured. They seem they're into music and pop culture and not as much sports, I guess, not really, right?
No, not really.
But you pick up
Watched and played growing up, but not, like, hardcore fans of anything, either of them.
So you've got like music in your blood. You're watching movies like more so like the movie nerd type.
My brother named his firstborn Luke.
Right. So like hardcore, right?
Hardcore.
Do you think that if they weren't that way, like what would have happened? Like let's say your brother was more of like a typical jock.
Oh my God.
Would you have been a sports?
Yeah.
Yeah, you probably would have just been whatever he was, right?
I always have been, probably still am, like modeling my personality and like who I want to be after my brother. Mm-hmm. Still look up to him tremendously. Like now as a father, I look up to him. As a husband, I look up to him. But yeah, I probably would have just been like, you would have seen Bobby Muscles coming at it.
Yeah.
I cover weightlifting. Well, Barstool doesn't have anyone that covers powerlifting. I want to cover this.
Thank God it was the way it is, because now it is such a huge market. But it's like hot in the streets right now to be like a Bob Fox. But for a long time, it really wasn't.
No.
For like all of eternity.
Yeah.
I mean, like, if you look at the way, at least stereotypically and in like cliche trope terms, movies, TV, comics, stories, books, everything portrayed like the nerd in basically exactly like this way as a negative for like so long, right? Yeah. And now you're having your time in the sun.
Oh, yeah.
Now it's like
I'm having the time of my life.
In the fucking streets. There's a market for it. There's money to be made, and girls find it hot. People find it endearing, But for a while, it's not, Like, so when you were growing up, were you like, the nerd who gets like bullied because of that? Were you like,
sorta?
Yeah, did you go through the typical like nerd social class type bullshit?
Definitely. And like wrestling was a big part of it. Like when wrestling doesn't become cool anymore, kids are big into like, that's fake, you're so gay for watching that. And you're like, what the fuck?
You watch
guys in spandex, and you're like, you were watching this last year.
Yeah.
I was watching pay-per-views at your house. What the fuck?
What happened?
Yeah. But
so wait, but also wrestling had its big glow up, like the Attitude Era.
And I missed that. So that was...
Yeah, how old were you for that?
I wasn't alive. I was born in 98. The Attitude Era was like 98 to 2000.
This motherfucker wasn't even alive. See, I forget this about Bob.
Yeah.
Because I can relate. So, like, the Attitude Era inside and out, but you didn't live it.
No, the first WrestleMania I ever watched live was the last match Stone Cold Steve Austin ever had.
Fuck! So you didn't get that. Like, there was a time where I remember not watching wrestling and being like, you guys fucking watch this? And they were like, fuck yeah, we do. And then, like, I watched a couple episodes like, pay-per-views or whatever, Raw with them, and I was like, oh, this is dope. So there was a time when that was cool, but you missed that as well.
Yeah.
So you came in after the fact when wrestling is kind of becoming, like, family-friendly and, like...
Not necessarily. It was ruthless aggression.
You weren't there for the Nitro versus Raw, like, all that fun shit.
WCW was gone, yeah.
Crazy. And yet you still kind of, like... You always stuck to your guns with what you liked.
Always.
Yeah.
Always. I mean, still to this day, like, people call me an idiot for getting a lightsaber and Batman tattooed on my arm. And I'm like, I guarantee you, I'm going to like that shit when I'm 50.
That's my thing. I don't have tats.
I've liked that shit for as long as I could remember. I don't remember a time where that wasn't part of my life.
Yeah, I don't have tats because I don't really want to put my body on display. And I don't have anything that I know I'm going to love, like, for my rest of my life, aside from, like, my kids. I think getting kid tattoos weird because they're like, are they dead? What's going on? But for you have such a look about you and such, like, these things that are you. It's not just like a hobby. It's not a flavor of the moment. It's like, who you actually are. And so, yeah, fucking get it.
Always has
It's
been. I
never
remember
going
getting
anywhere.
like annoyed with my mom when I was little, like when I was like 5 or 6, when I would get like a new movie would come out and I would love it. I would want the action figures and stuff. She'd be like, "You're just into this. You'll be into something
Right,
next month."
it's a fad. It's
I was
a
like,
phase.
"No, I'm not into
This
this.
is
Like,
it.
I swear to you, like even the pop punk stuff. Like I was in a pop punk band in middle school. The
What was that called?
epitome of it's a fad, but the band is called Fixed at Zero. We just, we weren't moving anywhere. We were fixed at 0.
Mm-hmm.
But
You know, it would be a good band name. It's a fad.
it's a fad, not bad. But that, like, I still listen to pop punk to this day. Like,
Yeah,
I have All Time
in the
Lows
fucking
tattoo.
band.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
still.
So, so you kind of go through like the typical like nerd treatment,
Totally.
and at that point, like, that's when anxiety and depression are starting to hit.
Wasn't over that. It was all over, like, family stuff. I, like, when I was 8 years old, found out that my dad had an issue with alcohol and drugs, and that him and my mom were having issues. And they weren't divorced, but they were going through it where my dad would be staying at my aunt's for a while, my dad would be staying at my grandma's for a while. And my brother and my sister, like, kind of treated me like an adult through it. And they wouldn't tell me the full details of everything, but they would, kind of fill me in on a little bit of it. And then things wound up looking like they were going to be back to normal for a little bit, back to being better. I went on some trips with my dad where he took advantage of that, and he got super, super blackout and would scream some crazy shit in my face. He never... It
was just you two?
Never, yeah, just us two when I'm 9, 10 years old. Crazy shit for a kid to go through. Like, shit that will mature you overnight.
Right.
Like, that's part of where that maturity comes from.
Yeah, so I didn't know. I mean, I always thought it was, I have an older brother and I like what he's into, and then there's this other side that's like an unfortunate side, but it grows you up real fast.
It grows you up so fast. And I went through this, my parents went through this, like, they didn't separate till I got in high school. So there were so many years where he was a functioning alcoholic, where everything was fine for 8 months out of the year, and then he would have a slip up, and shit would go crazy for a while. And I would get texted death threats, I would get texted suicide threats, I got a restraining order.
Shit.
Shit got really, really bad.
Yeah.
And that's where the depression, that's where the anxiety came in, that's where I don't want to talk to anybody because I don't want to talk about this stuff. I can't talk about this stuff without crying came in.
Yeah.
And like I said, never laid a hand on me, never hit me, never abused me in other than
there's-
emotionally and verbally.
Yeah. Which can be, just as bad. It's
Totally. And then my parents separated when I went into high school, and shit went really bad for about a year there because my dad went on a bad tailspin where we wouldn't hear from him, we wouldn't see him, we would hear very bad things when we would hear things. I think he's okay now.
Is he in the picture at all? You talk to him at all?
I haven't talked to him in about 8 years by choice of mine. He's tried to reach out a bunch. I think my brother and sister have had some contact with him, but I think, I wish him the best. I think he's sober now. He's just not a part of my life anymore. And it's like not,
So Mama Fox is the rock.
She is the rock. I'm a mama's boy, have been.
Always. Mama boys for life.
And like...
Any girl who fucking hates that, by the way, I can't stand that. Girls who don't like Mama's boys, take a hike.
So the piece I have tattooed on my arm is her handwriting.
Oh,
and
cool.
that's like, she's my piece. Like, she has always been where I go to. She's strongest woman in the entire world. Like, the shit that woman has been through.
Yeah, man.
Nobody would understand. Like, she was a stay-at-home mom until she was in her 50s, man. She had to go into the workforce to make sure she could, earn a living, having no college experience, no nothing. And she's doing fucking fantastic for herself.
amazing.
And like through Barstool, like I was able to co-sign a lease for her on a condo. So like
Cool.
shit like that.
Giving back.
That's like every bad thing that's ever happened to me in life at Barstool, every negative comment, like being able to co-sign that.
Yeah, whatever, right?
Whatever.
It's funny when you go through Barstool and you get hate and you get like bullshit, and if you're lucky enough that your life otherwise is good, that shit can eat at you and can weigh on you.
Yeah.
And then you go through some real shit, or you have gone through some shit already, and you're like, well, I wish they didn't like say that mean shit to me. I wish they liked me, but whatever, dude.
Totally.
There's so much worse that could be.
Back then, it was like my mom, my brother, and my sister. Those three.
It's all
like,
that matters.
All that matters. And it brought us so much closer. Like, we're so much tighter as a family now. My absolute 3 best friends in the world, they are. Like, my brother and my sister would just drive me to concerts, like, hours away when they knew I was feeling depressed. They'd be like, dude, All Time Low is playing 3 hours away. We'll drive you. Let's go. Like, I've seen All Time Low 13 times because of that. Like,
it's weird when there's that much of an age difference, because in a way they can play like a father and a mother role.
They were like
know?
a separate set of parents. Like,
Yeah.
I was having nights where I was just so depressed. Like, I was in the hospital in high school because I was like, I can't stop thinking about suicide. I just can't stop. In high school, I used every single absent day I could every year. We got 15 allowed absent days. I think in my sophomore year, I took 23 because I was just that kid.
So were you
in high
like
school,
suicidal? Were
yeah.
you like thinking about it? Like, I want to do it, or just think like having the thoughts?
I
or
don't
like...
think I would ever do it because of my family. And still, like, I mean, I've had thoughts. I go through depression still to this day. I'm on medication to this day. My family is, I would never do it to them, ever in a million years. I love my family so much. My mom, my brother, my sister, my nieces, my nephews, my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law. But I was definitely in a place where I couldn't stop the thoughts from happening. And I was like, it's not a good place to be, where you're sitting in algebra class and you're trying to learn a lesson and you're 15 and you're like, I would love to jump off the roof of this high school.
Yeah,
and you're thinking about where the stairwell is. And it's like, you can't
Kudos
get to that
to you
point.
for recognizing that, though. I mean,
yeah, I've
always,
always
owning up to it and telling people.
I've always tried to like speak up about that shit because I recognized like the depression early on. I recognized that like while my parents were still together, and like the trips my dad would take me on and shit like that happened on a handful of occasions, like 2 or 3 times, and I didn't tell anybody that till high school, like till they actually separated. So that was like eating away at me for years, just years.
What, you didn't want to like
I didn't
snitch
want
on him, basically?
I didn't want my parents to
get
separate.
divorced.
That was like what my dad was screaming.
That's such a fucked up spot to put you in.
He would get blackout drunk and he would say like basically, you know, if you tell anybody about this, you will be the reason. So I was in that spot for a few years.
That's such a horrible thing to put on a kid.
As an 8-year-old, you know?
God, you're lucky you're as good as you are, bro.
Yeah.
You are a soldier.
Yeah.
You're a
I mean, I'm
fucking
still
warrior,
fucked up
man.
with anxiety, with panic attacks, with depression, but
I mean,
I treat Barstool all that as a fucking victory lap, and like I'm constantly in a fight with my brain every day, the depression, the anxiety. Like every time I do a Dana White interview and I'm like, oh, I didn't have a panic attack after that one, I'm gonna go smoke a joint and celebrate.
Yeah,
like,
you earned it, man.
I'm
you
like,
deserved it.
I'm like, I fucking did that. Fuck you, anxiety.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten calls from you at times. You've had a couple bouts during Barstool where you like kind of stepped away for a little bit and just took some time off, but not much.
No.
I mean, I think twice ever, and even when you did that,
the most I
never
ever
like
did
took
was,
a leave.
It was
you know.
2, and people always exaggerate, like the people that will shit on me and be like, you took months off to get yourself right. I took 2 weeks off before Christmas break, so it seemed like it was a little longer than it was.
Well, smart. You played your cards right.
Yeah.
But even if it was, like, what were they shitting on you for?
I was getting to the point there. That was like from March 2018 through like December 2018, which is at a Barstool. This is while I'm doing the Conor McGregor versus Khabib fight, all that. I couldn't like step outside of that having a panic attack, like a bad one. Like remember when Kevin Smith came into the office? Like I was like it felt like my world would like close in on itself, and it wasn't over like big guests. It wasn't over big opportunities. It was over doing anything. It was. I live above a Dwayne Reed. If I went down to Dwayne Reed, I would have a panic attack. I would ask Trent to go down and get green tea. And he was, cool about it. He understood. But I was just in a bad spot. I wasn't on medication. I got off medication thinking I'm fine.
You just wanted to be free of it. You were like,
yeah.
And
eventually I got right and I got better. And like during that time, like we had the Pup Punk show in Boston. I was like trying to fight some guy in the crowd. I was just like losing my mind. I was going through so many panic attacks. I felt like I wasn't myself. But now I feel right. And like My Mom's Basement, like that's what the whole podcast was over. Because I couldn't do a podcast without having a panic attack. I couldn't do a radio spot without having a panic attack. I would like cancel on you and make up excuses. I couldn't get a haircut. I would make up excuses about haircuts. Like, it was weird stuff.
I remember the Kevin Smith thing was when I realized like the magnitude of it.
Yeah, because he's like my number one, right?
Yeah.
And I knew, God, I'm having panic attacks over everything recently. I cannot pass up an opportunity to interview Kevin Smith. The Lights Camera Barstool boys are being gracious enough to be like, yep, come and do it with us. And I was just like, fuck, immediately. As soon as it was like, all right, we're good in 5 minutes, it sunk in. And my world closed in on itself. Felt like I'm going to throw up. Feels like I'm going to shit myself. Like, I called my brother. I was like, I don't think I can do it. I think I just want to stop. Like, I don't want to do it.
Guy next to you.
Yes.
Massive Kevin Smith fan. Let me actually.
So he's going to have an awesome interview.
He's having a panic attack right now.
Don't.
I am.
Hold my hand. Watch this. It'll be so easy.
On my hand's cold. I have Raynaud's
They're a
disorder.
little bit clammy.
A year ago, I was able to get him to meet Mark Hamill and take a picture with him. And he's more hyped for this.
Oh
so,
my God.
Yeah, this is
sweet are
you're
you?
my number one holy grail ever. I would say if I weren't, if not for you, I'm not here. So this is like literally huge for me. Like I have a tattoo right here.
You got why not?
Yeah. So
I thought this was a confessional where you're like, you're my father. Here's a woman that you knew when you were younger. I was like, well,
no.
Why not? You got why not on your wrist.
Yeah.
And you're wearing a Killing Joke shirt. That's fantastic.
And it was weird because if Dave said, hey, come on radio right now, I got to ask you a question, I was fine. But if he said, hey, come on radio in 10 minutes, I got to ask you a question, in
Give
those 10 minutes, it would set in, and I would
Yeah.
just be like, I can't do it. So I took some time off, went saw a therapist, psychiatrist, got on medication, got right. I've been pretty fucking good since.
Yeah, I mean, and do you think is it like a chicken or the egg sort of thing? Like, do you think that you're doing so well now because of all that, or do you think because of all that you're doing so well?
I know, like, when I came back after Christmas break, like, more determined than ever. Because when I took time off...
Which is saying a lot, because you've always been a determined kid since you were fucking 12.
And when I took time off was the first time I ever thought about, like, I actually thought about leaving Barstool, and not based on anything Barstool related.
I remember thinking that.
I was just like, I don't know if I could handle this. I don't know if my anxiety, if I was in the state where I couldn't do interviews. I was like, if I can't do interviews, if I can't do a radio spot, what good am I to this company? Like, I felt bad about, what's my salary cost in the company? Like, all
I mean,
this
I never
stuff.
thought about that, but I remember thinking, like, it's fun and it's cool, it's crazy opportunity, but there's also this side of it that's a ton of unwanted exposure with zero help. It's not like we don't give you like a publicist team, we don't give you a manager, you're on your own, and a ton of negative feedback, and like it's just not always, not that I ever doubted that you could do it, it was more just like, I don't know if it's worth it.
That was where I was. I was like, I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze for me. And I had conversations with my mom about it, my family about it. And eventually I was like, you know what? No, fuck it. Like, I'm doing this. And I'm going to fucking do it better than I ever have. And I came back and I started My Mom's Basement. And I developed a relationship with Dana White from there. And like, that all sprouted from that. And like more determined than ever. Definitely.
Yeah.
And that's still, like, I still think about that all the time.
What, the Kevin Smith?
Just being, like the Kevin Smith thing, like George St. Pierre came into the office and he's one of my favorite fighters ever. I was going to do an interview with him and I chickened out. I couldn't do it. And Large did the interview. He got a jacket that's now hanging up in my room signed by him. Look at that jacket all the time and I'm like, I'll get that interview back one day. Like, I'm like about like getting all the interviews back that
like
I missed out on. And
right. I mean, it's My Mom's Basement, it's Pop Punk, it's MMA
Pop Punk
coverage.
was another thing I was so anxious about for so long. Like those
sure,
shows,
man.
which now I'm so much better. Like now I get so excited for the shows.
I mean, I'd be nervous as fuck too when I go.
That Irving Plaza show, I was like fighting with PFT the day of the show over like what time we went on. I was like, we're going on at 10 or 10:15, and I was being such a diva about it. It was just because I was so anxious. I was like, I need something to do. Let's fight with PFT. Like,
I do remember that. Like there was band tension. It's gonna make for a great behind the music one day.
Great beyond. That's what's gonna bring Buddha Ben back to Barstool. I swear, I'm gonna pitch him. I'm gonna pitch him Pop Punk the movie, and I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Yeah, but I mean, I think such a good outlet for you is like there's such a creative outlet, and that can get some of this out, you know. And then when you see the success, like, and I do believe, you kind of reap what you sow, and you are so positive that you get a lot of positivity. I would hope you get a lot of positivity back. There's always haters and shit, but
I didn't for a while.
Yeah,
there was a long time where it was like exclusively negative. Like I remember,
sucks, man. That's what is tough about our audience is that like they don't realize how much they can derail like a whole career.
Yeah,
like the amount of things that like.
And with me, it was so annoying because not to cut you off, but in the back end back in those days, we could see like the IP address of the commenters. There was one guy that had 17 accounts that would comment. And 17 is the real number. That's not an exaggeration. Right. And it was the same email on everyone. You could use the same email on everyone. And I just knew it was the hive mind. And I was like, this one fucking guy.
Yep.
Like,
but
turned
it looks
everybody.
like, there's a
he turned everybody.
It sucks,
was frustrating.
man.
And I went over, like, Feidelberg invited me over his apartment just to, like, make sure I was okay. And he was, like, super cool about that. You were amazing during
I remember that.
Like,
I remember.
I would call you just being like, bro, what the fuck? Like,
I remember being in Westchester being like, I can't help, but like, you're in the city.
I remember just being like, it was the deflating thing isn't even the negative comments. It's when you put out a new video you're excited about and you like post it and your friends see it and your family sees it and like the cool people that follow you see it and they click on it and they're like, oh, that was awesome. Let me see what the comments said. And then they hit you up and they're like, bro,
why did they say that?
Why does everyone hate you? And you're like, well, everyone doesn't hate me, but the people and it's like, you don't want to go through that.
No, you don't want to go through it, and it sucks. It's part of the game. I think it's extremely heightened with us, where it's like and then the flip side is the hate's going to be hard, but like when you get the love, then you get like the undying loyalty. But there's always like the haves and the have-nots at Barstool.
Yep.
And if you're lucky enough to just fall into the haves because you're likable enough, talented enough, your opinions fall in line with that hive, like great. And then there's the crew of us who kind of like got to scratch and claw our way through it, and that usually kind of falls into like Team Dave and Team Portnoy and Team KFC.
Careful with those words.
Right. And I remember this apartment right here, Trent and Bob. What was that over? Why did they call you into radio that day?
So it wasn't called into radio. Here's what the whole thing was.
Okay.
This was August or September of 2017 because remember it was right after Mayweather McGregor. Mm-hmm. I was in California at the time at TechCrunch with John Kelly. We were filming like a man on the street video, and you guys had some kind of Team KFC versus Team Dave segment on radio. That was not a big deal.
Team KFC though.
Correct.
I never have. I don't know what.
But at the time, there wasn't a Team Portnoy either.
Oh, really? Okay.
It was just like you had taken sides on something, and I forgot what there was. It was like if there was a war, like who would win, and if there was a Barstool war. And I saw the tweet from California, and like when you travel for Barstool, you feel like you miss out on so much that you want to be in the mix still.
Yeah.
I remember quote tweeting it and just being like, Team KFC all the way. And that was a mistake, obviously.
Yeah.
And I thought nothing of it. Like, I laughed, and Dave quote tweeted it and said, career suicide. I remember showing it to John Kelly and being like, you think he's serious about that? That's got to be a joke, right? He's joking,
and at that
right?
point, where was he up until that moment? I know he took a liking to you at one point. Like, you jumped out enough to get a full-time offer, and he liked the Octagon Bob shtick.
He liked the Octagon Bob
We needed the MMA
thing.
coverage.
Yep.
So that had all happened already.
And I made the video at WrestleMania where I was like playing Octagon Bob, asking wrestling fans
People,
like, "Do you know
fake.
wrestling's real?"
Yes,
And then I published.
You had the gloves on. You
Yeah.
had the whole Octagon outfit on, saying, "Do you know wrestling's fake?"
And then 20 minutes after that video was published, I published a 6,000-word blog about how much I love Daniel Bryan and his rise to the championship. And Dave was like, "Do you like wrestling or not? Like, what's going on?" And
That's perfect. That's the spot to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then I got super kicked at the show.
Right.
And I went
Took that
straight
bump like a fucking pro, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, he got kicked in the face.
I went straight from that to Augusta, and Dave was like, "You're off foreplay. This will be your last trip. You're full-time content then."
Which, by the way, let's take a little quick detour. You're making shirts for Kevin Owen. You're emailing Barstool every day since you're like 12, 13 years old. And then Foreplay starts, and they need a producer role? That was your first... That was when you get your foot in the door?
Not necessarily. It was Barstool moved to New York, and everyone needs interns.
Got it.
So I emailed. I actually waited till the intern applications were over because I was like, my thing is going to get lost in the bunch. Like, I'm going to a community college, and I was a close enough Barstool fan where I just paid attention to who hired interns and who didn't, and I emailed everyone who didn't. And Riggs was the one.
I mean, that is a systematic look at, like, when people are like, can you, I get emails all the time, DMs all the time, can you get me the email? I'm like, first of all, if you can't find it on your own, you're not being resourceful enough.
Exactly, yeah.
Second of all, you're just going to email it? Like, go ahead. I mean, you take a look at, you played your card. Like, you played, you looked at who needed it. And okay, so you email everyone who needs somebody, and Riggs replies.
Riggs replied, and he was like, yeah, like, we're thinking about doing a podcast. Like, I would love a producer. I said that I had podcast producing experience, which is true. I was doing it in high school. I was doing my own podcast.
Okay.
And I said I had some Photoshop experience, which was sort of true. I was actually going to my graphic design teacher in high school and being like, how do you do this, man?
It's an experience.
Exactly, yeah. So he hired me, like, pretty much immediately. Like, he interviewed me. I think it was the only person that interviewed to be his intern. And the only thing he felt bad about was he's like, I had a job at the time, and I was like, I'll quit that job immediately.
What was that?
I was doing graphic design for, like, a batting cage bowling alley. It was like a nothing job where I could pick my own hours.
Right. See, that's also perfect. I say this every time, how the story of Barstool, and I think I'm starting to learn that the story of life is just all about timing. But, like, Foreplay was new, and they needed help.
Exactly.
And he was just like, fuck it. Like, I doubt there was many people banging on the door for Foreplay.
It's time and place. And, like,
right.
I've told the story of getting into Barstool a few times, and every time I tell it, people will, like, hit me in the DMs, and they'll, like, flood my DMs with, like, I'll do anything. And I appreciate that. Like, it's nice that, like, I inspired them to do that.
Yeah.
But I think now the game has changed, and now if you want to get hired, look at, like, Doug's, look at your girl Mackenzie. Like, you got to make, like,
Create.
just what I did. I ran a blog in high school, partially because I was so depressed I didn't want to go out all the time. I was like, I'll get a head start on WordPress, figure out how to use this and stuff.
Yeah.
you gotta basically like act like you work at Barstool already.
Right.
Like
Just
use your own resources, whatever you
pretend
have.
you're happening and put
pretend
out
you work
content
here. Don't
every day.
make your handle Barstool whatever. But
Right,
like just
right.
act like you work here. Put out content every day, and eventually like catch our eye with a piece of it. It'll work.
Right.
It
I mean, it's gotta be
literally,
good,
like,
you know, but
Totally.
yeah.
Like the blueprint is now there for
Definitely.
Doug's, for like Mackenzie, for just make the viral videos and like make the viral videos. It's easier said than
Right.
done.
Yeah. I mean, that's the hard part, but it's like, put out the videos, write the blogs.
Either
put
that
out the
or learn
clips.
like the Adobe Creative Suite and be a Quigs who's like...
Yeah, no doubt. But even that, it's like just start making videos, make the compilations, make the Photoshop videos, that's
With
always
me,
what gets Dave's
it
attention.
was a lot of right place, right time. With me. Like a lot of
And
that.
if they're not like a fledgling podcast that's like, okay, well, we don't need anybody to help. But you know, if they were a little more successful, they would have been like, what's your golf background?
Totally.
And you would have been gone.
Yeah,
But
Greg
in that
said,
moment,
what's your
it's just
golf
like,
background?
whatever.
I said, I don't golf, I don't know nothing about golf. And he's
whatever.
like, that's fine, yeah.
Yeah, we just need a body who can do some shit.
Can you hit record?
So you get in on that, and then as you're, I mean, I don't know if this is the hard worker in you, the wrestler in you, but you play the part. You're wearing the Augusta National shirt. You've got the golf hat on. You are at the events, and you hate golf.
I don't hate golf.
But you don't like golf. I mean, it's not your passion.
Yeah, I don't have any passion towards it. Augusta was the first golf course I stepped on. That'll piss off the golf fans
so
watching
it's
this.
like
yeah.
zero. Oh, man, imagine that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, the only time I've ever been on a golf course is Augusta National.
Augusta, and I went to Smitty's outing at Avalon.
Right.
Yeah.
The two very different ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So you're doing that, and then like every now and then on the side, you also write a wrestling blog or an MMA blog.
Yeah, so I went to like Dave
And then you make the video.
and K Marco and said like, you guys don't have anyone covering MMA. I would love to write like maybe one blog a day about MMA. This would be great. They said fine, whatever, go after it. And Nate at the time was like, I haven't been watching wrestling as much. I know you watch a lot of wrestling. Why don't you just start doing it?
That's nice of him.
Very nice of him. And
A lot
he
of people
initially
usually
like
protective over their lanes.
very protective, and people think like Nate's always trying to like cuck me blog wise, because sometimes he'll blog like my reactions to fights, but he's like always texting me first and being like, do you want me to do this? He very much, Nate always helps me out with the blog stuff. But he let me do the wrestling stuff. I was doing the MMA stuff. I started making the videos. I did that video where Caitlin Chukagian kicked my ass. That was my first video ever.
She beat the fuck out of you.
I had Glenny Balls and Riggs in my corner as the Why Not crew, and I started doing the No Cum Challenge on the rundown.
So the no cum challenge was, I think, what really like caught Dave's eye the most. He had noticed everything else, but he liked you at that point. When would you challenge people to the octagon? Before or after the no cum?
Before.
Okay, so he liked the octagon thing.
Yeah.
Because I remember the name Robbie Fox jumped out at me as like, that's not a stage name. His real name is Robbie Fox.
Everyone was saying that at first. They were like, what's your real name?
Yeah, it's such a cool name. And then people were calling him Octagon Bob, and I was like, that's a great nickname, but we're gonna lose like Robbie Fox. Like, I don't like it as much, you know. But I remember Dave calling him Octagon Bob, Octo Bob. So he really liked that. And then I think it just, again, right time, literally big picture, right time, right place, based on the time you were born. The fact that you're a teenager, and we did a story on the rundown or
it was on
about
radio. It was Caleb, I think, has a cousin who's a doctor who said that like if you're actively ejaculating as a young male and you just cold turkey stop, you wouldn't be able to go 30 or 31 days without not coming.
Right.
Like eventually you'll come. And you guys talked about it on the radio, and like initially I was hesitant. I was like, no.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not gonna. I was like, that's
humiliating.
humiliating. Yeah.
Yes.
But then someone, it was either you or Dave, said like, we'll make it a story on the rundown every day. And I was an intern who was not hired. I was not making anything. I was paying like $12 a day for a train ticket. And I had
losing money.
No job. And I was like, fuck, I really want this Barstool job. So I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's do it.
And you know what? I mean, there's a level of humiliation about it, and like, you know, family and friends are going to be watching. But if I told you, you know, you can get a spot on the rundown, which at that point, and still to this day, is like the most important show.
Like 20 days
every
in a row.
single day, and all you got to do is, you know, and it's a lot. I mean, but it's not like.
I was truthful by it. We're years later. I would admit it if I wasn't truthful. We are years later. I was truthful.
Hang on. I don't know if I believe you.
That's fine.
Because you are. This is kayfabe. if there's ever someone who would take this to the grave,
I do agree
for the
with that.
story, it would be you.
I do agree with
Like
that.
Kane
But I
is
also
like,
think,
no. I was thrown into the fire by my brother.
But I also think I like the shoot interview so much.
The what?
The wrestling shoot interview, which
Yeah,
is
where you finally
always
tell the
like,
truth.
they finally tell you the secret how it's done.
So you don't touch anything or do anything with anybody.
No. Well, at that point, I don't even think I had options with anybody.
Yeah. Right. For 19 days, and
was
eventually
19, yeah.
you just came.
I remember the morning, waking up.
It was at night.
Well, no, I woke up in the morning.
Did you come? Well, were you conscious and awake when you came?
No.
Right. So you came at night. That's what I mean. Like you were sleeping. You had a wet dream.
Oh well, it was. There's a woman producer in the room right now.
Jackie, earmuffs.
It was so fresh that I think it happened and woke me up. I'm gonna be honest. I think it
was
actually
fresh
woke
and
me
it
up.
had to be a lot.
I think like it happened and I was like, okay, I'm awake. Time to clean up. Yeah.
So I'm trying to remember. I feel like you came in and you were like, it was very much like, it felt like, ladies and gentlemen, we've got him. You were just like,
yeah. I did the morning show. We had drive time. We had like a Facebook Live morning show.
Yes,
I hosted it with Smitty and Balls, and I was like, boys, I've got big news for us today. Big breaking news.
So what
we are
was-
going to be on CNN today.
And I've got some breaking news, breaking for the first time on drive time.
Go. You came.
I came.
Robbie's done. The guy is done.
I came.
Wow.
Big old wet dream last night.
Oh, so the rumors are true that you just can't hold it in.
Yeah.
Like, it was very
for sure true. 19 days.
Yeah, very
19 days.
involuntary
Woke
cum.
up, come everywhere.
Shit.
Come everywhere. Wow.
what was day 20 like? Were you just having a fucking blast with
Yeah,
yourself?
just cranking it left and right, bro. Beating my meat.
Real beaters unite, man.
Yeah. Just looking through the catalog of everything I saved over that 20-day span.
Yeah,
man.
so what was that? You ever see the movie 40 Days and 40 Nights with Josh Hartnett?
No.
He gives up sex for Lent. And,
Okay.
and he's like, on like day 39, he's looking at the light socket and he's like, I'm just gonna fuck the light socket. Like every single thing looks like something he can fuck with it like that.
Tacos,
I mean,
just
and
fucking, yeah.
19-year-old kid, 20 straight days is 19 straight days.
And I had
is
the
no
line
joke.
on the first day. Dave was like, "How we doing?" And I said, "No come out of this."
No
dick."
come out of this.
And my
dick.
favorite part of the whole thing was someone brought a sign to Monday Night Raw that said, "No come out of this dick."
I think you're a shooting star, but true or false, this is a true graphic. You have lasted one day without coming.
No come out of this dick.
All right, thanks, Robbie.
You know what? I mean, those are the moments. Like that is, for like that line to me is a huge difference maker. Like that is, you didn't mean anything by it. You didn't sit around and script it. You didn't
No.
write it. You could have
That
just,
was- yeah.
you could have just said, "I haven't come yet," and it's whatever. But you said, "No, come out of this dick," and
Yeah.
Dave like noticed it, and I noticed it, and like it just separates you.
And I think, by the way, like that was maybe one of the first rundowns I was on, and Big Cat said on that, he was like, "We got to punish Riggs for hiring a Star Wars fan. We can't have a Star Wars fan around this office." Fuck you, Dan.
I remember yelling about Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah,
Remember that
now
one?
you're a Guardians
Yeah,
fan.
I was like, this stupid fucking movie about like raccoons. Like this shit sucks. And you defended it, and there's such a market for it that there was enough people who were like, "Fuck you, this movie's awesome."
I told you,
was
it had
actually
some
the
light
moment-
in your heart.
That was actually the moment that I realized that there's like that like nerd culture has gone mainstream.
Oh, yeah.
Where it was like I expected more people to be on my side, but that being like, yeah, what is this nerd shit? And it was like, no, those are just like good movies. And I was like, oh,
They're like, bro, you're
okay.
fucking trashing Bradley Cooper here.
Yeah, right. I mean, I had no idea. So the no cum challenge happened. So Dave likes you at this point, and he wanted, like, he said, let's do MMA, like, having meetings with you
sort of
about
like
wrestling.
me. We
like,
got into it a little bit during the Mayweather-McGregor trip because he had one ticket to the fight, and he brought He Who Shall Not Be Named anymore instead of me.
Right.
And I was kind of going off on him. I was saying I created the best content this trip, which I did. I had the Mayweather stuff. I had everything.
So, yeah, so you were
And
on
he was
the trip, but you
initially
didn't have the
not
ticket.
planning on bringing me on that trip. He was going to bring Caleb and
Right.
Roan only, and I sent them like a scathing text or email saying like I'll pay my own way.
Yeah,
And he was like,
yeah.
all right, Bob, we'll fucking take it. Like,
Yeah,
whatever.
there's such a fine line between being like annoying and the asshole and being like, no, like I have to go.
I knew
I'll
I
do
had
it.
to be
I mean, it's the fight of the century.
Yeah, I was like, I will
never
fight
been anything
Floyd
like
Mayweather's
it.
father in front of your eyes if you
Right.
take me. Like,
So he takes you. You were ready to pay your own way, but he pays.
He
to take you
pays.
the trip, but you didn't expect a ticket. But then you heard he had a ticket, and you were like,
And everyone at that point was like, you got to take Robbie, right? Like, everyone was like, and he was like, no, I'm going to take a smoke show. He was like, I'm going to fly out a smoke show. He's like, I'm going to be in the fight, whatever. And then he was like, maybe I'll take so-and-so who used to work at Barstool. And he wound up doing that, and I was just like kind of bummed out. Then he bought me a ticket out of the kindness of his own heart. The Grinch's heart grew 3 sizes that day. Paid like over $1,000 for it, which in the grand scheme of things for him, I guess, is chump change. But it was a very nice gesture.
But you had kind of told him like, fuck you, but sort of like, wow, you're not taking me this trip. Like, I deserve a ticket.
I was sort of like, I don't think I said that. I was sort of just like,
I earned it. Like,
I think I said like, can we do a video beforehand anyway? And then he was like, sure. And then he might have bought me the ticket, and I was like, are we doing this video or not? And he was like, Bob, just enjoy the fucking fight. I remember he texted me something like that, and I was like, okay, like clearly.
Yeah.
I've crossed the line, which I probably did. I was a little too big for my britches at the time.
Right.
I came in like as an intern very much. I was like so always going after people and like getting into it with people on radio because I had seen the history of Barstool interns, and I didn't want to be like the whipping boy, especially knowing the way I looked. So I was like, I'm going to be the fucking, I'll go back at you guy.
Yeah, like
which,
that's
back,
like going back and go to prison. You take down the biggest, baddest fucking guy in the yard.
Exactly, which made me look like an asshole for a while, I think.
But
and
you
even
know
Rhea
what?
in the beginning was like, "You're a dick," and I was like, "Damn, I don't think I'm a dick." And like we became friends. Now we're like best friends. I would say she's my best friend at the office.
I guess I thought that played because of how you looked.
I thought it played
because
too, but
it's like ironic. It's like, oh, he's like the skinny nerd.
That's
but
what
he's
I
like,
thought.
Fuck you.
But
I guess not.
It was taken differently by some people for sure.
Interesting. So you had some in-house haters at the beginning?
Yeah, oh yeah, I think so.
Huh.
Yeah. I think I won people over later on.
Name some names. Rhea?
It was Rhea, but like me and Rhea were like, we had like a few like weird fights where like we didn't like each other, and I think it was just like we weren't willing to talk to each other. I remember like it was the whole Long Island crew, really. It was like Frankie, Glennie, like they were like, but I was also sort of like a weirder kid. I came in with a Star Wars backpack. Star Wars had a Star Wars belt.
You don't like what you don't know. You're different.
I was from New Jersey. They were from Long Island.
Talking some shit.
I was Riggs' intern.
You also know, like when you know Barstool inside and out the way you do, you're coming in with like knowledge is power almost. You know what I mean? You know how to act. You know what to say.
I think I was kind of a dick. I think I was overly defensive. I think I was like always snapping at people, always ready to like make a joke at someone's expense. Like I think my first few months at Barstool, I was a little jumpy.
Did I know
a
that?
little.
Did you ever bring that up to me or tell me that or anything?
I don't know. I'm sure so. Me and Rhea joke about it all the time because we had a conversation where we were like, why don't we talk? We were like, we don't like each other. We were like, oh yeah. And then now we're literally like best friends.
You guys are tight.
I
mean, the crew is like it was you.
That whole crew, me, Frankie,
Trent,
Glennie,
Rhea, Frankie, YP, like that.
Yeah.
The old office. That
absolutely.
Second row there. So yeah, I could see Dave like respecting that you have hustle.
Yep.
Loved that, once he heard that you were knocking on the door since you were 12, he loves it. Loves that you're kind of like bleeding
that,
Barstool.
Exactly. I bleed Barstool. I care about the company a lot. Like,
but then you're kind of bothering him because you're just over eager. And he's like, I'm in Vegas. I'm rich now. I want to fuck chicks and party.
I turned down a club invite that weekend that he was like, what the fuck, Bob? I made sure I could get you in.
Yeah,
like,
so he doesn't, certain things are not computing.
Yeah.
He wants to just like, we're going to Vegas to party for the fight. Like, shut up about work.
And I think when I turned down the invite, I was like, I'm here to work.
Right.
Like, being an asshole about it.
You're just
I was being a hardo about it. Yeah.
You're being a hardo, but even saying like just enjoy the fucking fight, Bob. Usually, just Dave doesn't respond at all.
Totally.
So you have that level of respect and a professional thing with him, and he bought you a ticket. So you ultimately know good enough.
Yes.
But then you say Team KFC.
Say Team KFC.
And in his mind, he's probably thinking that I bought you this ticket. I gave you a life.
That was his biggest thing that day on radio. Was his biggest point was I just bought you that fucking ticket. You ungrateful piece of shit. He was saying all this stuff. And I was like pretty nervous. I mean, that day I was so nervous because after radio I thought I was going to get fired. I was like, I'm getting fired. I'm no longer going to work at this company. I called you. I think Big Cat called me and he was like, Dave was really mad. Like, I didn't expect him to be that mad. Like, I don't really know how to play this. I would just apologize.
Well, now, I mean, I think we've seen more of it now. I think Dave views himself rightfully as a very loyal guy.
Yep.
And it's a little bit like mafioso, we've learned. Where, like, you gotta, like, kiss the ring and pay respects. And that's why I don't remember. I wish we could find out. I mean, I'm sure we can, but I don't think anybody remembers what the initial argument was. I think there was some level of seriousness where it was kind of like, I feel like anybody who's in-house knows that, like, Dave will kind of be tough on you, and I will, like, help you.
Definitely.
Right? Dave's not really here to help you.
Definitely.
He's here to just be like,
You
sink or
will guide
swim,
people.
and I will
Yes.
help. And so I think there was some argument that was a little more serious of like, I think people like me better, or will come to me for help, or whatever it was. And you and Trent spoke up saying that, and I remember immediately being like, thank you, but don't ever do that again. Because that is not...
I think you said that to me, and I was even like unaware of the dynamic at the time, and I didn't understand. Like, I was like, why? We're going to make this whole storyline. It's going to be great. We got a team. They got a team.
No, right,
and it was
right.
it was like, you were like, no, we think it's a joke.
He's very serious.
He's incredibly serious about this being like, you stabbed him in the back today.
Exactly.
And I would say for a year, Dave hated my guts, didn't look at me like,
Do you think he canceled From the Top Rope because of that?
No, I think...
Which is Bob. So Bob had a wrestling podcast from the Top Rope.
Yeah.
And it wasn't performing well, but also we've let a lot of things flounder, because you flounder and flounder and flounder until you don't,
Correct.
And that's kind of the process, but out of nowhere, and these things, I think it might have been true, might not have been true. Sometimes at Barstool, we make a decision based on one piece of info and one trend, and 6 months later, everything is the opposite of what it was. But I think there was a moment where we said anything that's not getting over 20,000 downloads gets canceled.
Yes.
And now that's not the policy anymore, but you just happen to be on the chopping block that day.
We talked about right place, right time. That was wrong place, wrong time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if we could say his name. If we can't, bleep it out. Mark Cohn was the reason that podcast got canceled.
Right.
We hired a guy who came in and was like an analytics guy from Facebook. I remember he quit to like go run for some other company. The week before he did, he had a meeting with me where he projected me to have like 40 million video views for the year. And I was like, what are we talking about? Like, I'm 19 and I know you don't know what the fuck you're talking about with like...
He was a very
I'm not putting up
over-eager.
40 million video views this year. Do you think I'm Dave Portnoy? Like,
that's a very hard number to do.
But he was just like, the podcast isn't doing well, let's cancel it. And
he canceled the Bachelor's after party stuff, which is we now see gets revived just this past week.
Like My Mom's Basement is practically From the Top Rope revived at this point.
That's
we have so many wrestling guys. And even My Mom's Basement, I think, is pretty similar in terms of like listenership from the Top Rope. I don't think the numbers are too different. I think My Mom's Basement is a very small podcast that Barstool is okay with at this point.
That's what I mean.
It's sponsored. It's not losing us money.
And if the idea that we should cancel a wrestling show and a Bachelor show, it's just if you guys were doing like weird niche stuff that like nobody does, I'd be like, this is a waste of time.
We were getting amazing interviews.
You're a huge wrestling forum. For a company that lacks that, so wrestlers are like, finally, I can go on Barstool, I can do interviews, and The Bachelor's the same way. So that was kind of wrong place, wrong time. But do you think there was any element of like, if you had said you're Team Portnoy, do you think Dave would have kept it?
Possibly, yeah. I think, it definitely couldn't have helped.
Right, It certainly was not like,
But I do think it was more... I think when Dave makes decisions like that, I think they are more business related, more fair. Whenever you have like a closed door meeting with Dave, he's always like, that's Dave Portnoy. That's not the El Prez you get.
I think what he doesn't realize sometimes though is that it's influencing him and he doesn't realize it. Like he's not thinking like, fuck that kid. He wasn't grateful. I'm canceling his podcast. But like
in the
somewhere back
mind.
here, he's like, yeah, fuck that kid. You know what I mean? So From the Top Rope gets canceled. And was that like a major setback for you? Were you like really bummed? Did you kind of like whatever, it is what it is?
I was bummed about it, but I was like excited about sort of new opportunities because the way it got canceled, like through Cohn in those meetings and with Dave, they sort of said like, we're going to cancel it, but we're going to develop like a Man on the Street video series for you. We're going to develop this for you. We're going to do, and none of that.
It wasn't just like, go home.
Totally. They were like, their wording of it was like, we're pivoting you. It was like, we're like the wrestling stuff isn't connecting.
Pivot.
Yeah. Exactly. So I was sort of like, I think Jared was more bummed than I was because I viewed it as like, okay, I'm going to fucking clamp down on UFC now. Like now is the time where I'm going to go
Might have been a
UFC
blessing in
heavy.
disguise.
Which, and looking back, like now, do I wish we kept it going? Kind of, because if we kept it going, I think we would be like one of the biggest wrestling podcasts in the world.
That's what I said to the Bachelor crew.
Exactly.
They did their after show the other night. And I said, imagine if you had 4 years of this under your belt.
Exactly. But it's like, would I have all the other stuff that I have now with the Dana White stuff, with the UFC stuff? I don't know.
So you pivot to UFC. Again, still a niche thing that nobody's covering. And what was like your... Again, it's funny because you're the skinny, nerdy guy who's covering the Octagon, which I think normal people understood.
Yeah.
But MMA hardos were always like, who's this guy? He can't throw a punch. He's
Yeah.
never been in the octagon.
Some of them still are.
And you played it so well. I mean, I feel like that's the wrestling in you, right?
Yeah.
Like that's where you know how to play
100%,
the
yeah.
heel or play the and not even heel. You're kind of the face, but you're like the sarcastic one, and
Yeah.
you're just needling
like the
them.
hurricane. you
Yeah,
know?
exactly, exactly. So you know exactly what you're doing there. Like,
Yeah.
And I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you've always kind of had a plan as to how you're going to go about covering the UFC.
100%.
Like I'm going to be the unabashed fan who like
Yes.
always positive about it, always like first of all just like extensive. I mean, you cover every fighter, every fight, you know everything. Your blogs are long, your videos are on point. But you had a plan from day one and you executed it.
That all goes back to like the blog in high school. That was let me get a plan. Let me develop a plan. Let me learn how to blog. Let me learn how to blog very quickly after events. Let me learn how to do like series. Let me learn how to do interviews. And the interviews usually got denied. Like I would ask for the worst fighter on the roster for 3 minutes and they'd be like,
Still no.
No thanks.
Yeah. But even that, having the awareness to be like, all right,
I would
let's
apply
shoot
for credentials still. They would be like, absolutely not. You have 200 page views a day. Like, no.
Right.
But that was like, I want to cover this as a fan because so much of the MMA media is negative, and the MMA media hates me for saying that still, my interviews with Dana. But when they interview Dana, they have to, especially if they're a journalist, they have to ask about fighter pay and disparages and whatever it may be. When I interview Dana, I think in my mind of it as like a late night TV show interview.
Right.
I think of it like I'm Jimmy Fallon interviewing Dana.
This is not a gotcha. This is not a hard-hitting Barbara Walters.
And that's not just with Dana. Like if you listen to my interview with Tommy Lee, it's the exact same way. If you listen to my interview with Billy Martin,
to go back to the very beginning,
thing.
it's you love to love. I want
love to
to
love.
love your field, and let's talk about it in a great way.
And as a super anxious person, as a socially anxious person, I like people to feel very comfortable when they're on my podcast, when they're talking.
You don't want
to me.
tension.
I don't want any tension. I want them to want to come back. I want them to want to be my friends. A lot of these people I interview, I just want to interview because I want to be friends with them eventually, right?
Yeah.
Like,
See, I'm a sick fuck. I'm the opposite. Like I loved the Action Bronson.
No,
I'm
that-
like,
I
I
would
wish
be
we
like-
had more of that. I wish we had more tension in interviews.
No, I don't like the tension. So that's just not my interview style. And they still will be like, yeah, you're a fluffer. I saw our boy Brendan Schaub the other day said on his podcast, he's like, you see how Robbie's getting all those Dana White interviews? He's like, you know what he's doing? They signed a deal with the UFC. I was like, I wish we did. Fucking speak it into existence, my king.
That's such a good, like, that's when you know when you're doing it to the point that people are coming up with like conspiracy theories like that.
Like trust me, I would sign the deal. Like if
Definitely.
you're saying that's a negative thing, I would sign the deal to be their guy.
Like you said, speak it into existence. Can I tell you the real thing? He likes Dana White and he's always positive. Like
Definitely.
Dana knows what he's going to get with you. And then you get the access and you cover it for the fans who like it. And if you want the people to talk about the pay differences and the issues with UFC and his unfair this, that, and the other thing, there's fucking journalists who do that for you, but Bob is not the guy for it.
Yeah, and it's just like, that's why, if you look at the Apex tour, the Office tour, that people will say like, I don't like that you don't ask him about this, but I love that. It's like, well, I get that.
Because I don't ask about this.
That's how, am I playing the game? Of course, a
you're,
little bit, but that's who I am
so
as a person,
open
too.
about it,
Yeah.
Like, I don't think, if you were sitting there being like, I give the hardest hitting interviews with Dana White, and it's like, clearly, no, you don't do the hard hitting questions, but you're just like, yeah, I like you call him Uncle Dana.
And also, if I was like, yes, I'm like, I hate this person, and I'm really getting one over on them by pretending to like them, it's like, no, I really only interview people I like. Like, I turn down interviews with people that I would be confrontational with.
And also, it's like, I'm sure I know you as a person, and I'm sure some of the issues with UFC you don't agree with, but it's like, I have best friends who I don't agree with some of the shit they do.
Absolutely.
And I don't sit down on the couch with them when I'm doing Couch Crew and talk about those things. We sit down on the couch, we talk about the things we do like.
And I get people, I've gotten it now more than ever because of the election, but you have the fighters who will come out and endorse Joe, fighters that will come out and endorse Trump. People, yo, Robbie, why aren't you blogging about Masvidal talking about Trump? And it's like, because I'm not blogging about Mark Ruffalo talking about Biden either.
Same
way.
I
don't want to talk about fucking politics.
Right, that's the beauty of Barstool.
And those are the people that are like, keep politics out of UFC. And it's like, why?
Yeah.
You can't win, but yeah.
So you've got, Dana White's phone number in your phone now.
No, I don't.
No?
He's an Instagram DM guy. Even
right,
when
fine,
Connor leaked the DMs,
you've got access to him
and we have DM'd,
on a level that probably very few do. You got literally access to a fight during COVID where you were one of 4 people to cover.
Crazy.
You have Conor McGregor sending you bottles of proper number 12.
Yep, still got my first one over there.
I mean that in probably in your wildest dreams. Is that fair to say? You never experienced like
beyond him, way beyond him.
And you're fucking 22.
I remember like watching Conor McGregor fight Chad Mendes, fight Jose Aldo when I was in high school in my basement, waking my mom up from excitement when he won, and just thinking, I wish I could attend a fight, cover it for Barstool, blog about it, and celebrate with the Irish fans in the crowd.
Yeah.
And like,
God, remember that video? You had the flag out.
2 years
the
in,
tuxedo.
I have Conor McGregor saying, "Yo, Robbie, what's up?" and giving me a ticket to his fight next to his security.
Insane.
Like, that's way beyond any. And the punk stuff is way beyond anything I could have imagined.
Right.
I gave up the rock and roll dream a long time ago.
Right.
You
So
know what I mean?
your rock and roll dream comes to fruition.
Yeah.
You're not a wrestler, but you're wrestling and UFC
Personality
coverage,
in
personality.
some way, yeah.
Octagon Bob is a thing. You're not just a beat reporter.
I'm friends with wrestlers, which was always my dream.
You're an anxious dude who has tons of followers, tons of exposure, like all eyes on you in a lot of instances. You do a lot where you are the only guy, you know?
Yeah.
Even when eyes are on me, it's like all eyes are on Dave and I happen to be there sort of thing. You are like, it's when you're covering events that like nobody else is at. It's truly all eyes on you. And, you've done all of this fighting through depression and anxiety, going through the family issues, coming into your own, all of that.
Still, every day, too. It's like not in the past by any means.
Right,
Still
a daily fight. Yeah.
Every day. That's like, people always, how did you get over it? It's like, I didn't, but like, you learn to deal with it, you know? You surround yourself with people that can help you out. You've been one of them. People at Barstool have been a ton of them. My family's been amazing, but yeah.
And now there's some love in the picture, Bob.
There is, yeah.
What do you call her? Mrs. Octo?
Yeah.
Which is, I think, an interesting point in people's Barstool careers as well. It's like, I hope that you've like looked at the way other people have done relationships at Barstool.
Definitely.
And been like, here's how I'm going to do it. Like, there was no blueprint for me, and I clearly went out at it the wrong way. But it's an interesting thing to balance. But I also imagine something like hugely important for you and like making you happy, right?
Yeah. Made like the best part of, like, I've had an amazing 2020, and I feel bad saying that.
I know.
Because people have been struggling tremendously.
You know what? There are people out there. I mean, I've had a good, like, professionally, I've had a good 2020. And like,
professionally, it's been really good for me as well.
You feel bad saying it, but it's also like, you know what? Everyone keeps talking about how bad 2020 is and how at every turn, all they see is negativity and hear bad stories. So, you know what? Here's a good story. Here's Bob found some love in 2020. We can all latch on to that.
I met a girl. She DM'd me in March. Not really a Barstool fan. Like, sort of knew Chicks in the Office's Bachelor recaps. So knew Trent, and then therefore knew me. And
again, right place, right time.
Right place, right time.
If you don't live with Trent, or if Trent doesn't cover The Bachelor or whatever, you never know.
100%. She lives in Ohio, and I drove out there to meet her, 8 hours, and I've been going back and forth ever since.
Answer to an ATI question: what's the farthest you've ever driven to get laid? I guess we know Bob's is 8 hours.
8 hours, and she's awesome. She's been like in the anxiety stuff, the depression stuff.
Huge.
Nothing has ever helped me more. She's made me incredibly happy.
Were you open on the table about all that stuff?
What do you mean?
Did you tell her
Yeah.
Like,
she's super, like, I can't not be.
How early?
Especially
when
with a girl I'm anxious.
So I was gonna say it's like here are all my issues that are definitely being exacerbated by hanging out with you.
100%. Yeah, I had to tell her like pretty much as soon as I met her.
Right. And that's, I mean, it's interesting because
she's been amazing. Yeah.
You don't want to like scare anybody off, but it's also like, listen, if we're gonna have any sort of semblance of anything, you're gonna have to know this and be cool about this. So I might as well just get it on the table.
Correct.
You know? So I mean, all things. What is like? What's missing?
Right now,
Anything?
nothing. Right now, I'm happier
right?
than I've ever been in my life.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess continued success in all of those realms, but is there? I don't think there's a realm left for you that. I mean, maybe if you wanted to like act in a movie, like be, you know what I mean, like.
Well, there's been some possibilities coming up.
That's what I mean.
Like, I can't talk about them, but for real,
you get an extra role, you get a side
some
bit or
extra
whatever.
roles. I think that would be really cool. Yeah,
that was the only thing I was thinking that like would be next is. Kevin Smith, or somebody's like, hey, why don't you like pop in this appearance here?
The depression and
Voiceover
anxiety
something.
stuff, like I'm pretty passionate about. Like I think one day I'll eventually do something. I don't know if it'll be a book. Like I thought about a book, like
speak at engagements
like
or something.
yeah. Not a TED Talk, but something like that. I think I have the right perspective and take on it where I can make kids my age laugh about it, laugh about yourself, and
there's still
not make
so
it too
much of a
negative.
stigma.
It's such a negative thing to talk about because it's such a sad thing to talk about. But at the same time, not trying to be negative. It's just part of my life. You know, it's part of so many people's lives. It's like we should just talk about it.
Yeah, no, definitely. So you got that to continue to focus your passions on. And I mean, otherwise, pop punk continues to grow.
I'm hoping
for an album. Was that you?
For an album.
Was that you putting that out there, or was that you it's happening?
It's me putting that out there.
Trying
pretty
to
much.
encourage
I think 2021,
maybe an EP.
So I want to do an album. My vision for an album is we'll re-record some of the songs we already have. My Real Girlfriend, Back to School, they should probably be on there. Maybe Just One Christmas as a bonus track. But I want every song in the album to have a different feature by somebody in pop punk. And I'm starting to develop these relationships where I'm starting to become friends with guys in All Time Low and Good Charlotte and Seaway.
Get my man MGK up in the mix.
I think it would be cool if, we have a drummer from one band on one track, a guitar player from another, a bass player from another, and they're all kind of a tribute to that band's sound.
Cool.
So I think Pop Punk 2021, look out for our debut album.
Unbelievable, dude.
Yeah.
Octagon Bob. He's in
and
the
more
Octagon.
shows.
He's on the
we're
stage.
Already getting offers for festivals in
sure.
2021 that might happen.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
The kid's in a band. He's found love. He's one of the premier journalists in his sport.
I did an interview with a commentator from the UFC, Brendan Fitzgerald, recently, and he said, "What should I call you? Media, journalist?" I said, "No, I hate that." I said, "Just fan." He said, "Okay, in that case, I think you are the loudest speaking fan in the sport."
A preeminent fan.
He's like, "You've got the boss on speed dial." I was like, "Fucking hype me up! Keep doing it."
you host your own podcast with a very good sponsor. CBD
3Chi,
sponsor.
I mean,
3Chi is
the best.
Talk about
Delta 8,
a marriage.
The promo code is basement, folks. Please use it. Please show them how much I appreciate them.
Bob uses it and needs it, and it works well.
That's the other thing is weed has been people always clown on me for that, for my anxiety.
Fuck, what do you mean clowning you?
If you guys watch my Dana White interviews, I'm high in all of them.
Shit.
In all of them, and it's just, it levels me. It's like a thing that
lets you thrive. Where would you be without weed? Where would you be without
music? If I wasn't, I'd be like, Dana, pay Conor McGregor more, please.
I mean, it's amazing. Again, right time, right place. If you did this 20 years earlier or something, I guess it all would have to be in the internet era. But if weed wasn't being legalized,
shout out Buddha Band, Roan, Rhea, and Hank, and Caleb. They were the first people I ever smoked with.
Yeah, I feel like Barstool's done you good and kind of push you to the edges a little bit more.
Yeah.
You're not a partier, but now you know to dabble in weed.
Definitely.
Anxious dude, but you socialize a little bit, found some love. It's been good for you. I'm sure there's a lot of negatives and drawbacks with the asshole fans, whatever. But I hope overall that Barstool has been better than not.
Way net positive. Way net positive.
Congratulations on everything, babe.
I think deal's up at the end of next year, and I'm looking to very much
we'll be resigning
return.
That.
Yeah,
we'll be resigning that for sure.
I'm Barstool for the long haul.
Barstool for life, baby. Good shit, Bob.
Listen, if you made it this far into the video,
which is far, no one ever does that on the internet.
It's the end. You made it to the end of the video.
The full fucking video
you watched
did.
the whole thing. So if you liked it and you watched the whole thing, why don't you subscribe?
It means you like us.
Click the subscribe button, because if you don't, I'm gonna fucking murder John.
And I'm gonna like it.
Kill him with my bare fucking hands.
Yeah.
And if you weren't sold on this video, there's plenty more. Watch what's next up and then subscribe. But just subscribe so I don't have to fucking kill him.
Well, I don't know. Do what you want, but subscribe. Probably.